Hello, you're listening to and watching Wake Up with Patty Catter. Today I have Nick Palmisciano on the show. Welcome, Nick.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's great to have you in my hot seat finally. You're a popular guy. It's hard to get a hold of you sometimes.
Well, we've got a lot going on between the company, the show, and all of the nonprofit work we do. So, I'm happy to be here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I can't wait for my listeners to hear more about you. I'd love to start with you just telling our listeners a little bit about where you came from, though, because not a lot of people know your background. They know what you're doing now, but I'd love to hear a little bit about where you came from and how you got where we are today.
Yeah. So, I am I don't know how far back you want me to go.
Let's throw it childhood.
We'll go childhood. Okay. I am the son of an Italian immigrant. My dad came to the US when he was 9 and served in Vietnam, became the first member of our family to go to college and graduated valedictorian. So he set the bar pretty high. Um, and I lived in Italy I was born in America, born in Providence, Rhode Island, lived in Italy for from 3 to like 10, and came back to the States and lived in the Boston area and basically got the crap beat out of me for a couple of years for being the weird Italian kid. And so, we're all a product of our childhood. Whatever we didn't get in childhood becomes our adult personality. And so mine is, um, a constant desire to kind of grind through adversity and do my own thing. And so that's where I come from. That led to wrestling and combat sports so that I stopped getting beat up. That led to West Point. That led to, being an infantry officer for a while and serving our country in the best job I've ever had. And then I got out and I did what everybody tells you to do, which is go to business school, get an MBA, and then do the Fortune 100 gig. I did that. I lasted for 4 years, started a apparel company as a hobby. That hobby grew into Ranger Up, which at the time was the biggest and first military apparel brand. Um, I left. I left that, sold that company, and when I did, shortly thereafter, they laid off all of my old employees. And so I started a company so that they would have jobs. I found out on a Friday they were getting laid off. I told them that day, there's good news and bad news. The bad news is you're getting laid off. The good news is you have a new job on Monday if you want it. And they said, "What's the job?" And I said, "I don't know. I'll tell you on Monday." And that's where Diesel Jack Media came from, which is my current company. And it was born from all the skills that I learned building Ranger Up, social media, marketing, ads, all of the different things that it takes to run an apparel company are actually very complex and apply to every business. And so that's where Diesel Jack came from, and we've been very successful. We count among our clients the American Legion, the Student Veterans of America. We've worked with fantastic brands. We've worked with over 40 companies, and I really enjoy helping people kind of get to the next level, in their business or with their nonprofit. Well, inside of all of that. There is also there have also been challenges that have, risen. The number one, kind of thing that set my nonprofit world in motion was the fall of Afghanistan. And during the fall of Afghanistan, um, my friend Sarah Verardo reached out to me and said, "Nick, I need you to go to Afghanistan." And I thought she was joking because I'd been out of the military for so long. I'm not that cool, and I wasn't that cool when I was cool. And but she was serious, and so uh, myself, Tim Kennedy, Chad Robichaud, and 9 other middle-aged veterans headed to Afghanistan. and helped evacuate about 12,000 people into the UAE through some fantastic connections through our mutual friend Joe Robert. And you know this story very well. Without Joe, there is no evacuation, you know. But that set off just, hey, we kind of put this band of great people together. We then did work in Ukraine. We've done work in Gaza. We've done work in Haiti. Where there is a crisis, we are there, including, at the top right now, we're working Hurricane Helene. And so there have been all these bad things that have kind of happened, and the veteran community is always in the thick of it. Every time something bad is happening, you look around, there are veterans that are solving those problems. It's in our DNA. I don't care if you were a badass, soft dude, or if and I'm not crapping on anybody, so I always feel bad using any example of the other extreme. But if you were a clerk, or you were you worked in legal or finance or whatever, it's in our DNA to help each other, because that's how we grew up. And so the veteran community rallies around these things. Well, it takes a toll. The wars took a toll. These events take a toll. The contribution of veterans takes a toll. And so years ago, I did a movie with my friends. Most of them are now much more popular than I am, but called Range 15. And that's, Matt Best and Jared Taylor and Tim Kennedy and all these guys. And that was such a fun moment for the veteran community. And one, I love to make film, but two, I felt like it was time for something fun, to get back to, to having a little bit of fun with who we are. And that was, where the idea for Office Joe came from. And I actually spitballed it with Donnie O'Malley, who was the founder of Vet TV. And he was a huge help in, kind of framing how to do a TV show, because I had done film, but I had never done a series. And I put together these scripts, and we, last December, we shot this television series, and it came out great. And that's kind of where I'm at now. That was long-winded, but I'm Italian, and you did ask for me to go all the way back to my childhood.
This is so interesting. I didn't know a lot of your story, especially from your childhood. It all makes sense.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Yeah, that's why
wow.
I hate bullies so much. I get like viscerally uh affected when I watch any. I don't get bullied anymore. I'm not like that. I don't tolerate that. But when I see anyone getting bullied, I have a visceral reaction because of getting my ass kicked for 2 years as a kid. Kid stuff never leaves you, like it's important to know that. Like you think about, oh yeah, it wasn't that big deal. I toughed through it. Like it's with you forever. It forms your personality. And it's true of everybody I know. Every single person I know that has done really cool stuff has had some kind of, and I hate to use the word trauma, because at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal, but like something early in life that shaped how you think about life, and it like never leaves you.
That's such a great point, and I don't think anybody's actually like tackled this topic on my show before. Because when you opened up, you had mentioned people, they do react on their childhood when they're older. So just thinking about all of my guests and the trials that they've had and overcoming those trials with triumphs, your story makes perfect sense. So your show, Office Joe, is hilarious, first of all.
Thank you.
I had the pleasure of having a little bit of a preview and was pretty shocked and amazed. Even at the very opening scene of the first episode, I was like, oh my gosh, because I've worked with veterans now for 17 years, and every single vet I've ever worked with told me a story of how when they were trying to ETS, they had all this red tape, but once they ETS, they could finish what they were supposed to do while they were ETSing. And
That's right.
oh my gosh, that is just
It's
perfect.
it was such a night. I mean, and it's funny, every veteran that has watched the opening scene, I watch them like clench, like get tight, because they've all lived it, whether they lived it with, finance or CIF or whatever. Like they've had that moment.
Mhm. Absolutely. How did you pick out the actors for this show?
So, there were certain roles, like, all of I'm just going to call them influencers, but all my friends, that, that kind of flesh out the universe, like Jared Taylor, Austin von Letkeman, Ashley Gutermuth, Vince Vargas, Tim Kennedy, Jack Mandeville, Jack Rea, Eric Tansey, like those that I knew from the moment that I was crafting the show what they were going to be, because those roles were literally designed for them. The role, if they didn't exist, the role wouldn't exist. I just knew that they would crush those roles. But then for the ensemble cast that makes up the people in the office, it's super interesting because some of those characters I envisioned differently. And then when we posted, we did an open casting. And when we posted that, we got people that saw the role differently and applied, when they did their tryouts, they played it almost the one that's most noticeable is the character of Raph. Raph is I'll just say he's our stereotypical, left-leaning guy, and then Carter is our stereotypical right-leaning guy. And this isn't a political comedy. I think you'd agree with that. But it's just like those are the people that you find in any any office, and so I wanted them to exist in this universe. Well, originally, I wrote Raph to be like a little uppity and a little judgmental and a little, like very not endearing. And Kenny, who's a Marine, he's the last guy you'd expect to be a Marine with his gorgeous looks and his long flowing hair. But yeah, Kenny, who's a Marine, played him very like gracious and endearing. And I love it because instead of it being like he's judging everybody, he plays him like he's earnest. And I loved it. I will not take credit for that. Similarly, Carter, I had him being almost like the stick up his butt kind of guy who everything had to be just so. And Sam plays him sleazy, like just a little sleazy. Not still a good guy, but you know. And so, I wrote the words. They said the words, but the way they chose to play them made it something else. And so, the actors all really earned these roles. But even still, something that Ross Patterson, and you might know him from Drinking Bros. Ross Patterson directed Range 15 and he did a great job with it. Very, very huge project, and I didn't fully appreciate it at the time. But after directing, I appreciate it a lot more. But at the time, he said, there's the movie that you write, the movie that you shoot, and the movie that you edit, and they're all different movies.
Yeah.
What I wrote is absolutely not what was shot. The actors improved it. And then the editors did a fantastic job. But the shoot is where you find out, is this going to be good or is it not going to be good? And the words can be good, but if the actors don't fit together, if it doesn't feel like they've known each other for a while, like they're friends, like it's wooden, especially in an ensemble comedy like this, it doesn't work. And I mean, these guys were all so close that two of them are now dating. So uh,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. So
wow.
they got along really well. So hopefully, that continues. So we keep that chemistry going.
Oh my goodness. So I think of two shows right off the bat when I watch this. And so I'm going to say this because I think that it's even better because it fits the niche, the veteran community. Automatically, I think a little bit of MASH just because of the military thing, I think.
Sure.
But Seinfeld, and you know how far that went. And I'm
Yeah.
telling you, this is better in my opinion. I just get the humor. I can relate to a lot of it. I know a lot of, like I said, my whole life has been around veterans, but also the fact that you can take the show and civilians can relate to it. And it is hilarious. Like there's one part, I don't even want to give it away, but it was the first episode. There was a phrase in there that was cracking me up because it was something that I remember saying. Um, well, I think I can say it because I don't know
Go
the
for it. So,
transition part of it. Do you know what I'm talking about? The transition part of your military life. Do you know what
yeah, yeah,
so is it okay to talk about
yeah,
this?
go ahead.
Okay. So when Ken was transitioning from the military, I remember that one of my neighbors was really confused about Ken transitioning. And it was just something that in the forefront of my mind, everybody should know when our military is transitioning. But apparently, not everybody looks at a transition the same when we're talking about transitioning. And I'll just
Yep.
leave it at that. But that part was very real. I mean, there were so many things in that first episode that like I can see everybody relating to. And then the civilians who watch it are going to have a huge awakening of like, oh, this is what they're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah, this is very different. We wanted this to be approachable. When we made Range 15, we didn't care if anybody other than the veteran community liked it. We were younger and we were more aggressive back then. And now it's like, I mean, I love Range 15. I'm proud of it, but even when we were putting it out, we told people, don't bring your kids to this. It's dark. It's real dark. Office Joe is not that. It definitely has humor for the veteran community, but most of our like audience testing has been with people that never served. And they've all really enjoyed it, and because it's instructive to what it's like for a veteran to be transitioning into the civilian world. But it also, all the characters in the office. You've worked with these people, there's, the political people, you've got the, kind of the creep, you've got the old guy that you're like, man, why is he still even here? Like shouldn't he retire? And he wants to be around, but he's kind of a bastard. You got the young guy that's earnest and is trying to do his best, and everybody kind of like, abuses him a little bit. Like these are all characters that we all have in our offices. And so it's very relatable. And it's fun, but also at the same time, the message is to kind of remind, veterans that everybody goes through this. And I say that a lot. I had an easy transition by nobody should feel bad for me. I left the military. I went to Duke. Like nobody should be shedding a tear for me. Still, though, it was hard. I felt like a fish out of water. I didn't fully have my feet underneath me. I felt massive guilt for getting out because, I had friends that were still fighting. I lost friends. All of those things go on in your head, and that's normal. And so, we address all the things that we all experienced, but we do it through comedy. Yeah, it's an approachable show. I think truly that anybody that likes this kind of comedy will like the show. If you don't like comedy, if you spend all your time trying to find fault in everything, you'll definitely hate the show. But if you enjoy, kind of like classic 90s, 2000s comedy, old school, there's something about Mary, you like The Office, you like Parks and Rec, I think you'll enjoy the show.
Absolutely. And it's so needed too, because I feel like every time we turn on a TV show, every time we turn on a movie, it's filled with somebody wanting to persuade you to believe something that you don't believe or
That's
that
right.
you don't want to. So
Yeah.
this show, it was so refreshing. Like it was the first show I've seen in a long time that I could just laugh and feel good and not feel like someone's trying to shove their
There's,
view down my throat.
that,
And it
that's
was
right. That's right.
completely
There's no
fun.
agenda.
Right.
And the characters, just like in real life, have different opinions.
Mhm.
There isn't the accepted, but they're all nice to each other.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the thing, is like it's very easy to think on, when you're online, when you're perpetually online, that, people that have different opinions don't work well together. They can't be in the same room, they're enemies.
Mhm.
But that's not the reality that any of us actually live. You
Mhm.
know, you go to work, you might not even know what people believe politically. You don't care. It's like, hey, it's a nice person. They have nice kids. They're respectful. They're good at their job. Like, and that's the way it is in Office Joe. Now, most of them aren't good at their job, but that's what makes the comedy fun. But they're all, you know, they're all friends.
So before I tackle the next subject, where can people watch your show?
So the show goes live November 8th. And it's going to be for sale on Amazon, Apple TV, and Google Play slash YouTube. And then it well, we don't know yet. We have one yes, and we have one we're waiting to see how it does. So it's important that we do well with sales. I'll just put it that way. And that could open up a huge door because the challenge that we've always had in the military community, even though we are a very big population, you know, there are, you know, 14 million veterans. That's a sizable chunk of America. Um, Content is never made for us in Hollywood. And Hollywood would disagree with that because to them, every action movie is about a veteran, right? It's always a, you know, he was a Navy SEAL, he was a Ranger, he was a whatever. Um, or they do movies about broken veterans. Those are the two favorite things Hollywood likes to do. Either unstoppable badass or totally broken alcoholic. There's no in between. But they actually don't have shows or movies that are just about kind of like, hey, this is what life is really like. You know, the person happens to be a veteran, or you know, the fact that they served colors their life a little bit, but they're not perpetually veteran, if that makes sense. And and that's, you know, and I think we need more of that. And I think there's a huge audience that wants that. But you know, when we spoke to the big dogs, right? We talked to the three biggest streamers, and they all of them, you know, we had real conversations. It wasn't just like, oh yeah, yeah, whatever. You know, they all said we like the show. We think it's very funny. We think it's very well done. Like we were surprised by how good, you know, the quality of the recording and everything is. Um, we don't see any big stars. And it's interesting because we actually have more followers across our cast than almost any show. You know, um, you know, if you think about Tires, which I thought was, you know, a very well done comedy that was on Netflix, that was the number one comedy on Netflix for a while. And, you know, I think in total they had like 5 million followers, and we have like 14 million, but they don't know them. So it doesn't translate to them. And so, you know, I mean, I'm not throwing any stones. You know, it's on us to prove that we can bring an audience, and I hope we do, obviously. Um, but I would like to get to a point, and kind of my mission is not just films or TV shows that I make, but I'd like to kind of like do what we did with Range 15, get in the door where the streamers look at veteran stories, like real veteran stories, as a viable option. Because right now it's not seen that. You have to put Chris Helmsworth in it. You've got to put somebody that they know, or there is no show. So, you know,
Yeah, but I think we're going to change the narrative here. And I
I
think
hope so.
we get
Yeah, I hope so. I'm like I said, I'm super pleased with how the show turned out, and I think the actors did an incredible job bringing it to life. Dan Mercer in his television debut and his lead debut absolutely crushed it.
yeah, I
He
was
was good.
shocked.
He was good. He was
Yeah.
really good.
Yeah, I was shocked. I have had the pleasure of meeting Dan, and
Yeah,
I had no idea all of that was inside of him.
yeah. So, you know, Dan, you guys obviously don't know, Dan Mercer works here, and our lead producer, Hollywood Hurd, who also is in the show playing Kevin Alexander. Um, he was adamant that Dan was our guy, and I was reticent to put an employee of the company, as the lead for a lot of reasons, but he earned it,
Yeah.
and we did have people try out, so he earned it despite my desire to not put him in the role. And I've told him that a bunch of times, so this is no surprise, but he did a great job.
Yeah, he did. He literally captured my attention
Yeah.
quickly. I mean, like within the first 2 seconds.
Yep.
Completely amazing. And
Yeah.
I mean, I think that your show's going to go far. I think he's going to go really far. And I
I think
hope
so
that
too. I
hope
think
you
so
don't
too.
lose him as an employee.
Hey, listen, the best thing that could happen to, I never am upset when people are successful.
Mhm.
That's a really important thing is, and it's hard because like, and this, you've employed people. It's hard when people that you really like, that you count on, tell you like, hey, I'm going somewhere else. It hurts, but it happens all the time. And you have to be happy for them. You have to want people to be successful. Ideally, it happens with you and they see opportunity, but like when they're ready to move on, like you got to cheer for them, not hope that they fall or something.
Oh
It's
my gosh,
a,
yes.
it's a big, but you'd be, I mean, not you wouldn't be
No, I
surprised,
know.
but there's so
Yeah.
many people that get that wrong,
Yeah, that is so true. And besides, when he is this multi-bazillion dollar
There you go.
actor, he's
Yeah,
going
he
to
might be like, hey,
make
Nick, come direct this giant movie that I'm in.
it.
Never know.
But I do think that this show is phenomenal, and I really do think that it's going to go far. I would
How
love.
can we just talk about how creepy Hollywood was in his
Oh,
role?
yeah, I need to have him on the show. I was just telling him last night. Um, yeah, he definitely was that, and I was thinking maybe we shouldn't be in a room alone with him ever again. He pulled that right out of himself. That
He
was amazing.
did.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
he did.
He's good. Yeah. Could you quick tell us a little bit too about your organization? I want people to definitely know about Save Our Allies. You're all doing an
For sure.
amazing job. I don't have the pleasure of knowing Sarah very well. I know of her, but I know that it seems like she has fantastic judgment at who she's calling on to help with Save Our Allies.
So Save Our Allies was, like I said earlier, saveourallies.org, founded during the fall of Afghanistan. And essentially what we do is the board members are kind of working board members. We do not have overhead. We only have one employee that's kind of like the administrator, our chief administrative officer, and she makes sure that everything is legal and we are doing the right things and we are taking care of the money. And then whenever there's an issue, we have people that we've worked with multiple times that are essentially teams ready to move. And so, if something happens, we spin up. Um, at the beginning, it is always volunteer. We obviously cover expenses for people that are volunteering and all that kind of stuff. And then if things go long term, like they did, for example, in Ukraine, then we bring people on, as contractors for a prolonged period of time. But the goal really is we are a stopgap between a catastrophic incident happening and the government being able to take full control of a situation. Because no matter how fast the government is, a small organization is always going to be faster and have less restriction. So, in the case of Afghanistan, we supplemented the great work the government was doing. In the case of Ukraine, it was almost 2 years before the US was, fully taking over some of the tasks that we were doing. Um, and hopefully here in North Carolina, we are not needed in the you know near future. But right now, there is just the situation is pretty terrible.
Mhm, it is. How can people donate to your organization? So, especially North Carolina. That's here in the
Yeah,
United States.
absolutely.
We
SaveOurAllies.org. You can go there whether you need help, whether you want to volunteer, or whether you want to donate. It's all the same organization, and we update constantly the front page of the website to adapt to whatever the situation is, so that you always know what we're working on at any given point.
Excellent. Thank you, Nick. And again, your website and social media for Office Joe, do you have?
Absolutely. OfficeJoeShow.com. That's OfficeJoeShow.com for Office Joe. And you can find me at Nick Palmisciano everywhere except for Twitter, where I am still at Ranger_up.
Love it. I do want to give out one more shout out. You have so much going on. Your business, tell us.
My business is Dieseljack Media, and it's dieseljackmedia.com. And, we love to produce commercials, create ads, or, if needed, we can actually be the entire marketing arm of your company.
Excellent. So everybody, make sure you go check out all of Nick's websites. I'm going to have links to them on my social media, on my website, and I'll try to get it all over the place for you. So thank you for being on the show, Nick. You are a phenomenal inspiration. You have always been such a great leader in my eyes. I mean, I didn't serve at all in the military, but when I see all of the great things that you're doing and you're really trying just to continue to move forward and bring your brothers and sisters along with you, that is very impactful. So thank you for all you do.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.